Season's greetings, everyone. Welcome to the DisCuss Hawkeye Podcast. This is the inaugural episode, guys. If you guys are watching this, episode 1 and 2 are released on Disney+. In this episode here, we are only going to be covering episode 1, but you should be able to see the video for episode 2 shortly after this as well. As far as the show, I don't know if you guys have seen the DisCuss Foundation shows or any of our other DisCuss after shows before. Essentially what we do is we give our general feelings on the episode as far as if we liked it or if we disliked it. Then we go into more of a scene-by-scene recap where we recap each episode, kind of go into a little more in-depth into the show. And then afterward, we give our predictions on where we think the show is going to go in the future. For this one in particular, because it's the holiday season, we're going to be partaking in some fun Christmas traditions. We have a lot of really cool stuff planned that we're going to be getting into. In this episode here, we are going to be doing some letters to Santa here. For those of you that don't know, he is a subscriber of mine. We're going to be kind of talking directly to him and getting some of our wishes granted for the show. Hopefully, if he can pull some strings with Marvel Studios. Just to introduce ourselves here, my name is Nick. I am a contributor and creator at Dis Media. We do movie reviews, reactions, watch party. We do our podcasting network. So if you guys want to check out my site, it is linked in the description below. And I am joined by my guest here, Jace. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing really well, man. Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to not just this episode, but covering the whole series with you. I'm Jace from the channel Burja Rocar on YouTube. I do quite a few movie and show reviews myself, specifically quite a lot of Disney Plus stuff, and then a variety of skits. Feel free, as far as I'm hoping my info's down there as well. Otherwise, I'm going to seem really silly saying that it is.
Absolutely, guys. His stuff is going to be linked in the description below for the whole season, so make sure to check out his content as well and support over there. Without further ado, man, we're going to go ahead and get into, since Santa is watching here and he's very busy, man, we're going to go ahead and get into our wishes for him. Merry Christmas! Dear Santa, I know it's really hectic and you got a lot of wishes you have to deal with, but for this season, I'm really hoping that we can have Yelena Belova be more of a prominent figure in this season. I think there's a very huge, I mean, there's kind of a given that she's going to be in the show. I think they've already announced that. I'm hoping it's not just like a 1 or 2 scene off thing, and she's a little more prominent here. I really want to see kind of how her, Clint, and Kate, that whole dynamic works out. So I'm really looking forward to that. Hopefully you can make that happen. The other wish here is going to be regarding Lucky, the adorable dog that we've seen in the trailer. Please don't let anything bad happen to him. I don't think my heart could handle it. So if you could please just let Lucky get off scot-free in this season, that would be fantastic as well. And lastly, more of a long shot here, if you could have the show reference Die Hard, because it is indelibly a Christmas movie. I don't know if anyone disagrees. We can fight about it in the comments. It is very much a Christmas movie, and I'm really hoping that Clint Barton gives off that John McClane energy. And they kind of reference Die Hard a couple times in the season here. But those are my wishes, Santa. I'm all tapped out here, but I do have my friend Jace. Jace, do you have any wishes specifically for Santa that you want to address?
It is kind of perfect timing. I would love to take this opportunity to use this stage and also throw some wishes out there. And funny enough, Nick, you also have one that is very much in tandem with what I'm thinking here. And that does deal with, Dear Santa, please have Yelena Belova be a prominent role within this, right? I definitely want her to be more than just a cameo appearance. Another one that I have is Dear Santa. It's something I hope that you could make sure doesn't happen. Can this show not have a typical Marvel ending, if you will, which we get with seemingly a lot of other shows and movies? Now, don't get me wrong, I'm a huge fan of all that stuff, but where it's just like nothing but a big CGI mess. Thankfully, I have good hopes that it's not going to be that way because of the fact that it's a very grounded character and seemingly a grounded show. But nonetheless, I feel the need to ask and go ahead and throw that out there. If there's any last thing I could throw out, is just that I want this to be a proper send-off for Hawkeye. Like, I can very much tell this seems to be a swan song for Jeremy Renner, and I am okay with that as long as they happen to do it justice, right, and kind of be respectful about it and everything. Maybe just maybe have it where this one, he doesn't die and he has the opportunity to come back later.
Absolutely, man. So, Santa, I hope that's not too much. I hope that's not too much of a to-do list for you here. I know you got a lot of stuff going on. I really appreciate you watching here. So hopefully you can make some of those things happen. Without further ado, we're not going to keep Santa waiting. We're going to go ahead and go into our general thoughts. We did see episode 1 here, so we're going to kind of give our general thoughts on what we thought of the of the episode. Further down the line when we do our podcast, we're going to kind of rank them as far as like where we think the episodes maybe rank against one another. But as far as your general overview of episode 1, what did you think, Jace, of the pilot? I don't know what the name of the pilot was, but what did you think of the pilot for Hawkeye?
I think it was something like "Don't Meet Your Heroes," if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, it was something like that. Yeah.
So I went into this show with extremely low expectations, and not because I thought it was going to be bad. It's just more so, with some of the shows, the characters they've been focusing on, WandaVision's a perfect example. I just don't really know how to feel until actually seeing it. This one is, I'm glad I went in with low expectations because I feel like I ended up having a pretty good time with it. Not a lot really went down, but I didn't feel like a lot really needed to. It was just got a lot of good character development, really, giving us a nice introduction to Kate Bishop. I very much appreciate, and you'll probably hear me repeat this a couple of different times throughout, that they did not seemingly just make her an instantaneously great at absolutely everything type of character. Even though it was a little tiny montage, showing her build her way up in the beginning and everything. So nonetheless, I like how they established her. I like how they seem to introduce Hawkeye back into this. It kind of makes sense, I guess, so far. I was wondering where this was all going to fit into place. So nonetheless, I'm happy with the little intro that this was and how it kind of wraps up at the end, which I know we'll get to, where they kind of come face to face.
Just to reiterate, it is called Never Meet Your Heroes. And I like to give shout outs to in the DisCuss here for directors and writers on the episodes. I feel like TV writers and directors don't get a lot of shine. It is directed by Rhys Thomas and written by Jonathan Igla. And yeah, just to continue my thoughts, I really enjoyed the episode. I thought, like I said, I love it when it's more grounded. The scope of the story is a lot smaller, a lot more focused, a lot more focused on character specifically. I thought it was a really great introduction to Kate Bishop's character, and Haley Steinfeld I thought was extremely likable in the role and feels like she really fits as that character. Let's go ahead and dial down and get into the recap a little bit. We're going to go through the episode a little and give our thoughts on these different kind of set pieces that come up. So the show kind of opens here with the big 2012. So we're back in where the initial Avengers occurred in New York City. We're all the way back here. This is like the second time that I think they did this. I want to say it was Endgame, right?
Correct.
So yeah, this is the second time we're going back to that first attack, and we're seeing it through some different eyes. So we get introduced to a small Kate Bishop, and her parents seem to be arguing about some money problems when some, I guess for lack of a better word, shit hits the fan. Stuff starts happening. What did you think of this entire sequence as far as Kate, the kind of introducing Kate, and then all of the kind of craziness that ensues, and seeing the Chitauri invasion through her I guess 10-year-old eyes at the time, 10 to 12-year-old eyes here?
I think really that scene was a very big success overall for me, as far as like a start to the show and a way to captivate you and pique your interest and kind of bring you in. I've always kind of thought about, with a lot of big superhero events, what it must be like from that perspective, like someone who's just having a regular day and all of a sudden stuff just completely turns upside down. So the way that you see things slowly shift, how like, she starts noticing things in the window, and then all of a sudden the ship flying overhead and everything, it had a very intense feeling to it. And I thought it was really cool to see it through that different type of lens there. And then they did it where it was like kind of typical, and dare I say, someone could maybe say it's cheesy, but I didn't have an issue with this. I do like how then she happens to like look out, see Hawkeye doing his thing, and there's that initial inspiration right there. And it was really focused on him. There was no one else kind of flying around and doing their stuff. Right. Though I think I heard Hulk yelling at one point, which I thought was really cool. I don't know.
I didn't hear awesome that, but yeah, that would be cool. Yeah, no, I really love that scene as well. I loved, like you said, the perspective shift, and one of the things I really like that Marvel does, and I feel like they've done it on other properties as well, but when they add in these different perspectives of an event we've seen before, it raises the stakes of the initial event. It's like when I see this scene and I see like a small Kate Bishop walking around this luxury apartment getting completely torn to pieces by the Chitauri, and then I go back and I was to watch the first Avengers, it really kind of raises the stakes, because now you really, like, as they're going through those action scenes, you're like, oh, there were people in all of these apartments or houses, and these are all like these are all like families and lives that are being affected. Whereas I feel like when you watch it the first time, it just feels like carnage and destruction, but there's not like a face to it. There's not like a person to it. So I think like scenes like this kind of retroactively flesh out those action scenes in the beginning and kind of build into each other. I thought it was gorgeously shot. I thought I think it was mostly a oneer. So like a lot of it was just kind of following her as a one shot going around. I thought that was really cool. I thought it was a great introduction here. Her house kind of in a one shot quickly turns into a war zone. And then yeah, she sees Clint from that other perspective. It's a little coincidental because she doesn't, like you said, she doesn't see the other Avengers doing their thing, but New York's a big place, so he must have been in that quadrant doing that at the same time. She says the dad says pretty much like he's gonna protect her, and then again like the parents are going through some money trouble, which I think kind of gets contrasted later in the episode. And then all the carnage ensues. The mother comes back and gets her, but then her father, they cut to a funeral with her father. I remember thinking initially, I was just like, wow, it's like you can't have a superhero without a lost parent. You know what I mean? Like it's just kind of, it's the formula. And it makes sense because I think it makes sense because it's going to play into Kate and Clint's dynamic in the series. So I get why it was done. I just remember, and I like that they got it out of the way quick too. It wasn't very melodramatic. It's like you get introduced to the dad. He says he's going to protect her, and then it happens, and it's like, okay, the Band-Aid's ripped off. We now know her origin kind of story, and it took up maybe like 5 minutes of the show and stuff. So strong scene, very strong scene overall. I love the line where the mother is talking to her and says, "What do you need? If anything you need, I'll get it for you." And she just goes, "I need a bow." Like she's just like, "I need a bow." I thought that was a great line. The first episode, we can talk about a little about the opening credits. Did anything jump out to you about the opening credits? I think you touched on it earlier, but the one thing I really liked about it was that it doubled as a montage. So I like the efficiency of that. Like you're doing the opening credit sequence. It's got a very Christmassy vibe to it. I thought the art style was a little generic, but I mean I was fine with it. But it doubled as a montage where you see Kate Bishop's progression. It shows her doing gymnastics, it shows her doing archery, it shows her doing martial arts. And I kind of like that the show didn't allocate time to that. It was just like, this is what she's been doing in the time from when she asked for the bow to the time that we meet her when it starts the show. So I did like kind of the efficiency of it doubling. Is that did you have any thoughts about the opening credit sequence at all?
I mean, really, just to kind of repeat what you were saying, I thought it was just a very efficient way of going about it instead
Right.
of exactly like you were saying, really taking the time to have to kind of unnecessarily show a bunch of stuff that still would have been cool if they would have had like tiny snippets of real clips of them doing that, but not really necessary. My biggest thing was just really, I just appreciate heavily the fact that as they were showing that montage, it was very clear that she was never the best instantly at anything. And all I mean by that is not to say it's not good to have natural skill or that it should be frowned upon at all. It's just great to see in the realm of kind of the way they do stories nowadays. It's great to see them be grounded enough and willing to say, no, like, look at how she built her way up. There were some times when she was doing good, but then she got third and then kept building her way up. And now she's doing first place for a lot of stuff. So it made, if anything, I'm going to say it made me instantly like have more respect for her before they even got deeper into anything.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. I think it makes her more relatable. And I think, like you said, it's really important when you're showing, especially when you're introducing a character, because we're only 5 minutes into the show. We're just introduced this character. She needs to have a lot of room for growth because there's going to be a lot of show that we have to have here. So, yeah, I think it makes her instantly more relatable that she's kind of struggled. She hasn't just been immediately like a prodigy at everything she's ever done. It's just like she's put in a lot of work. It shows her doing all the classes and all that kind of stuff like that. So, it cuts from that. We go to the prank, I guess. I guess maybe this was like I don't know if this was a sorority prank or a bet gone wrong or something along those lines, but she seems to be at a kind of boarding school, kind of, I'm not sure, or maybe a college. I guess it's like a college. She climbs up onto a terrace with all of her equipment and her arrows and stuff. And she is on a phone with some friends, and they're trying to ring an old bell. It looks like it's one of those like old clock tower bells, like you would see at like a Yale or a Harvard kind of place. And it looks like they're going to try to ring the bell. And to do that, she's going to use her bow and arrow. Obviously, that's kind of her tool of choice there. Did you have any thoughts about the scene? It obviously goes very wrong. Just to finish the recap,
Yeah.
it goes very wrong. She hits the rope, the whole bell tower collapses, and that's kind of how we're introduced to Kate Bishop.
It did a nice job of showcasing her skills without going overboard. You know what I mean? It was like,
Yeah.
that was still, for anybody else who wasn't good with the bow and arrow, completely unrealistic, but it wasn't so like out of the realm of reality where it was like, come on, there's no way that she'd do something like that. That was like,
Yeah.
okay, I can see. And it also shows she's resourceful, since the first way doesn't work, and then she just on the fly happens to think of the way to make things work correctly.
The other thing I was going to say too is it kind of introduces us to this setting, which is for those of you, I guess you're not aware, Hawkeye is a Christmas show. It seems like it's going to be homaging a lot of Christmas titles and properties, and we did see the New York snowfall, the lights on all of the college campuses and stuff. So that whole aesthetic has been introduced to us as well. It goes from that scene to it looks like we're getting into, it shows the very beautiful aerial cityscapes of New York during Christmas, which brings, like I said, brings up all of these classic movies that we've seen over the years. And then we get to Rogers the Musical. This was this was very interesting. I will say what I did like about Rogers the Musical, and I'm going to recap it in a second, but what I did like about it was it felt like a real musical. It didn't, you know what I mean? It didn't feel like a fake TV show, like musical or whatever. It looks like they actually trained for it. They actually practiced for it. They had actual theater people doing it. They went all out and made it kind of a real thing. It's going to be really funny if this show takes off and they decide to actually do an off-Broadway version of this at some. I think they're probably going to, honestly, if I had to guess.
Oh, I bet that this was, absolutely a trial run. I guarantee there is a full-blown script that's just sitting there, and they were like, let's just throw the I could do this all day song in there and see how people take it. Just like the Agatha song, I guarantee that this is going to be somewhere people are going to be like, I demand a full musical now.
Right. Yeah, it definitely felt like something where they like somebody pitched it. They said, hey, why don't we do a Marvel musical? And they were like, I don't know. And they're like, hey, why don't we throw in like the first 2 minutes of it in this show and see how it does, and then if people really dig it, we'll kind of expand it. It did feel like a Kevin Feige dipping his toe in the water kind of situation, So we get Rogers the Musical. Clint Barton and his family are sitting watching a musical here on Broadway. It is Rogers the Musical, based on Steve Rogers. It seems to be detailing the Avengers. They are all present. A very bombastic, loud musical. It was funny how over the top it was, and kind of cheesy everything was, kind of on purpose. And then it also introduces something about Clint. And let me know if I'm wrong too. I think this is the first time we're probably getting this information, but he has a hearing aid, right? He's dealing with some hearing loss. I'm not sure if that's shown itself in other shows or if this is the first time we're being introduced to that information.
No, I actually think, and I'm glad that there's some confirmation here. Because it definitely kind of took me by surprise, and I tried to immediately draw backwards of like, hold on, did I miss something at some point in time? I think though that they did it on purpose, because it's almost like he is just tuning out the music on purpose. Like there is nothing wrong. It's just that's what's happening, until you realize, oh no, it's because the hearing aid. So I think that was just like an artsy way to show and lead to, oh, he has a hearing aid.
I think it's setting up that and I think the show itself is setting up that he's not really over Natasha and what happened. Because it seems like in that moment when they mention Natasha in this musical is kind of when that kind of acts up, and his hearing kind of fades out, and he seems like he needs to go outside and get air. So it seems like they're setting up that maybe he's still dealing with some post-traumatic stress from what happened to Natasha, and maybe hasn't fully kind of gone through the grief of that situation. Is that what you got from that too?
No, absolutely. And actually, so not to jump forward too much, obviously, but there's even a moment later on where something happens, is said. That's kind of all I'll throw out. And it's a very similar thing. She's referenced. And when she's referenced, you definitely see like it hits them in a different way. So yeah, I agree. Right. I think that this is going to be exploring that throughout the show.
Yeah, absolutely. So he goes into the bathroom. He meets a pushy guy that's trying to get a picture with him in a very awkward position, kind of getting selfies. He's setting up. He's kind of world weary, and they're kind of setting that up. He's kind of dealing with. He doesn't like The one thing I guess one of the things I like about Clint is he really doesn't like that he's a famous Avenger. Like, you know what I mean? You get that vibe that he's just like, I don't want to be known for this stuff. I don't want anyone to know me. I'm not. He doesn't like to be famous. And they're kind of setting it up with this guy who's pushing really hard to get a selfie for his kid in the bathroom right next to him on the urinal, which is not a cool move if if you're in that situation. And yeah, they're setting up that he's kind of very world weary and he doesn't really like being famous at all. He goes outside, kind of gets some air. His daughter comes out, she's concerned for him, and then the rest of the family kind of gets together and leaves. We go to Kate. She's going back home into her apartment, or I think she's going to her mom's house. Yeah. So we go to Eleanor's house. I believe this is the same house, right? Did you get that? Did you get the feeling too that
Yes.
so this is the same house that was attacked in the Chitauri invasion because it has that,
'Cause when
that
she
big stairwell in the
walks
middle,
in-
right?
Yep, that was exactly what I was gonna say.
Right. So I think they made that stairwell kind of iconic to kind of push that point home. So she goes back in. It looks like they've obviously fixed everything since the Chitauri invasion happened, and they've stayed in that same penthouse, the same penthouse that I think the mother and father were arguing that they were going to have to sell when she was eavesdropping in. So I thought that was a good point there. That they did end up keeping the house, and for obvious reasons, because apparently they're loaded now. She's super rich. She's going to some kind of charity gala fundraiser thing, so they're not hurting for money anymore. That's for sure. We don't know why yet, but they're definitely not hurting for money. She goes in and kind of talks to her mother, and her mother is very angry with her about breaking the clock tower. And as a penance for doing that that mischievous deed, she has to go to the fundraiser with her. So she says, you're gonna have to put on a red dress and go to the fundraiser. She does not put on a red dress, as we'll see in the next scene. But yeah, she does end up going to the fundraiser here. Did you pick up anything specifically from the conversation with her and her mother? Is there anything kind of interesting about that scene and all that you can pinpoint?
Just that something's off.
Mm-hmm.
You know, obviously it's kind of, how did this come to be? There's no explanation that they randomly won the lottery at some point.
Right.
So, you know, and it is something that's fair to say. It's not just like, hey, she got a job and now they're just managing to hold their own and they're doing good now. No, like, you're doing really way too good. So what exactly happened here? You know, and plus you clearly were able to pay for all these extracurriculars that your daughter's been through. So yeah, there's just something, and that's not really just that conversation. There's other things within the episode that really seem to hint towards the fact of, I don't know exactly how to feel about her mom. She's, you know, I don't know how trustworthy she is.
Yeah, I'm glad that hit for you too. It definitely did for me too. She is very suspect to me, the mother. It's, you know, when you detail it, when you're in the show, she may not seem that nefarious, but when you kind of zoom out for a second, it's like, oh, there's a lot of like red flags with her, where it's like she's like you said, she's super inexplicably rich. She's like collecting swords. She's got very weird dealings. And we're not given information as to why. I'm sure it's going to be revealed to us in the future. But yeah, the mother seems off too. I'm totally with you there. I do think that there may be concealing some information about her character that will come out obviously in the next episodes. But she's not just a mom. There's something going on with her, definitely. So we are also introduced to I don't know his name, but it's the stepdad. He is dating Jack, maybe? I think you might be right. I think it might be Jack. So we meet him. There's obviously some passive aggressive tension between her and the stepfather figure. And there's a little more to his character too that kind of gets revealed in the episode as well. So we go back to looks like a dinner that Clint is at with his family. And he's kind of going over all the Christmas traditions that they're going to do. And I thought that was amazing because we're doing Christmas traditions for the show. And then in the episode, he starts talking about these different Christmas traditions that they want to do here. He makes a key point that I want to detail, which is he says 6 days till Christmas. And then they talk about Christmas traditions activities. But he said 6 days till Christmas, and that kind of perked my ears up because I think there's 6 episodes in the season, if I'm mistaken here. So it kind of sets up a time frame for the show that I think each episode is going to be a day leading up to Christmas. Do you think that's an apt thing to pick up on? Like, I feel like that's how they're going to kind of format the show. Is each episode is a day before Christmas, and each episode is Christmas. His kids are going to be doing an activity that he wishes he could be partaking in, and then that's kind of the framework, I think. Right? Does that seem like a good guess?
I would say that's got to be hit the nail on the head, 100%. I mean, it's a little too coincidental. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That there happens to be exactly right. 6 episodes, 6 days till. Yeah, there's a couple of things that make me feel it's exactly going to be that, and I'm kind of cool with that, right? Just as far as like here's basically the week almost before, kind of leading up to that. Even in the trailer, right? The whole like promise of I'll be there before Christmas, which I'm sure that this is exactly what it's culminating up to.
Yeah, that's definitely what it seems like. It seems like it's moving in real time. We don't get a lot of time skips. It seems like everything's kind of moving in real time pace, and I think that's kind of how they're going to structure the show. Is Hawkeye's going to be, and I love it. I love how kind of simple it is. It's just like Clint wants to get home to his family for Christmas. We've got 6 days, and this is the show. You know what I mean? So I really kind of like how they're laying that out. Hopefully that turns out to be the format, because I think that would be, like I said, very simple but effective. They get a call from Laura, the mom, and they're kind of detailing that she wishes he was all there. He gets the meal comped because he saved New York City, so he feel like he should probably get every meal comped. But he kind of tries to decline it.
Which he doesn't seem happy about. That goes right into what you were saying earlier about him not really wanting to be a famous Avenger, right? He like doesn't even seem too pleased or like overjoyed. He's just kind of like, oh, thanks.
Right.
Like, now I feel bad.
But I do think that they're kind of setting up that he may be dealing with some survivor's guilt about maybe stuff with Natasha, and maybe he feels less than. He maybe feels like he doesn't deserve these things because he wasn't able to save her, something along those lines there. So I think he might be dealing with some of that, and I think that might be kind of bleeding into his kind of issues with being recognized for doing anything heroic when Natasha's not around. So I think they might be setting that up for his character in this way. But yeah, he does seem like he's kind of like, I don't want these free things. I don't want to be kind of given this praise for being a hero here. So I really love the production design in this. It seems like they're really referencing a lot of those 90s and 80s Christmas movies in this New York way. They're putting in the colors. There's a lot of like the out of focus bokeh of the Christmas stuff in the background. It feels very Christmassy, heavy snow in New York, all that kind of stuff. So it feels like they're going like 9 and 10 on the Christmas scale for this show, and I love it. It's very kind of exactly what I was wanting there. Did you have any notes at all on the scene with his kids at the dinner table and stuff like that? It really just seemed like they were setting up their relationship and kind of how their relationship dynamic works going forward. Did anything specifically jump out at you at all?
I do have one thing to say. Nick thought of his ideas for our episodes first before we watched the show.
Yeah,
I'm going on the record and I'm vouching for you, man. Right? I need everyone to know that. I know some people are gonna be like, "Oh, this is where he got the idea from." No, really, because other than that, you're right. On a more serious note, it's a very simplistic, straightforward scene. It was nice to see him with his kids a little bit, right? And I think that's actually what was nice. Is, dare I say, I don't really need like a whole half-hour type of ordeal with his kids. It was just nice to see them establish the relationship. There's clearly something that's like a special little thing as far as with him and his daughter, and it just seems like a nice young whippersnapper. I have no idea what made me pick that choice of words, but there just seems to be something as far
guys,
as
I don't know if you know, but Jace is 87 years old. I didn't know if you guys could. He's obviously an 87-year-old man.
Botox. Botox.
Right. It goes from that scene. We're back to the fundraiser. Eleanor is looking debonair in a black suit. Or not Eleanor, I'm sorry. Kate is looking debonair in a black suit. And she gets approached by like a kind of a skeezy rich dude named Armand. Seems like a caricature of a rich person. And he is he's talking he drops a bomb on Kate, which is that her mom is getting married to the stepdad that she had these kind of antagonistic feelings for in the last scene. Jack, like you said, I think she's getting married, and Kate was not aware at all. So he drops this kind of bomb on her, very passive aggressively. Feels like he knows she didn't know, and he's kind of telling her to just kind of send a riff between her and her mother. Did you get these like I hate that guy vibes from Armand too?
Oh yeah, like especially just because I mean, even the way he was talking, I like how you said caricature. He was very much like a cartoon character come to life, you know. And it was like even the way he said at the end, he was like, "You should go talk to your mother." Like he's like, I know exactly what I'm doing here, right? I'm ruffling the feathers and I'm planting some seeds. And yeah, there was something just kind of you know off about that. Plus I got to throw in, since we're bringing up the Jack guy again, I'm going to say it at some point or another. Doesn't he just come off like he's Pedro Pascal's like older brother or something like
Yeah.
that? I don't know if it
He
was.
definitely has a similar vibe. Kind of in I was thinking Pedro Pascal's a good one because I always thought like when I saw him I was thinking Antonio Banderas too. I think he has kind of that kind of feeling to him too. Just a very and I think you know if you're him and you're listening to this podcast, first of all, like great choice. But second, that's pretty good company to be in, man, to be compared to Pedro Pascal and Antonio Banderas. Hey, yeah, so we get Armand here. He's got a little kid. This little kid's gonna come back at some point, right? We need to keep our ears perked for this kid, right? I don't know if he's in the comics or something. Armand the Seventh, I think, is what he said. Do you think that kid's gonna pop up? Maybe in either in this show or they're maybe setting him up for like a future thing where he's gonna show up in something else.
I do think that if I had to speculate, that it might be something more for like down the road. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I'm not too sure about with this show, only because, you know, clearly he's still a little kid. I'm not really too sure what he could do at this point, unless
Yeah.
it was just something that, you know, all of a sudden, because all the other Armands die and he's now just the Armand in charge. And they're like, all right, kid, what do we do? And he's just like, blow up the world.
Yeah.
I'm,
Right.
I'm not too sure. But otherwise, I do think he might at least come back into play.
I don't know, and maybe people can let me know in the comments. Maybe Armand the Seventh has some kind of comic origin that we're not aware of, you know, because that happens to me all the time. Just full disclosure, guys, I'm pretty casual Marvel fan. I was not like a huge comics kid growing up at all, so I'm not very well versed in the history of the Hawkeye character and all that kind of stuff as well. So he definitely could be a character that is going to show up later. It seems weird to kind of shoehorn him into that scene and introduce him to Kate like that, and then just have it be for nothing. So I'm sure he's going to come back at some point. But yeah, that scene was just introducing that kid. She goes and confronts her mom about not telling her that they're engaged, and she goes, "Oh well, I just didn't." She goes, "I guess the cat's out of the bag." I forget what her rationale was for not telling her. I think she just said that she was waiting. She was waiting for something. I'm not sure, but she gave some explanation that seemed like it satisfied Kate to an extent. So she goes outside, and we meet the star of the episode. She goes outside and she sees Lucky, the one-eyed dog. His name's not Lucky in the show yet. I just know that before watching in all the promo materials that everyone had said this is Lucky, the pizza dog from the comics and stuff like that as well. So she sees an old kind of beat up stray outside. Looks like a golden retriever with one eye. Do you know anything, or had you known anything about Lucky previous to watching this, or anything about the character?
You know, it's something that you know, when you were talking about being not as well versed with comics, I would like to think to an extent, I'm always willing to admit when there's something I'm not as well versed in. But as far as got a chance to read through a decent amount, I would like to think, and just always been like a fan of the material in general. But this is something that I am not, as far as like kind of as much into or know as much about, would probably be the better way to say it. With that being said, the only kind of dog I really know having a presence in Marvel, like off the top of my head, is the space puppers from Guardians of the Galaxy. Otherwise, with this, I don't know. I'm really curious as far as to like what extent it's gonna play out to. A part of me was thinking right away, as far as like theorizing, I was like, how much you want to bet it's gonna end up being like the cat and Captain Marvel, and it's actually some like space being that's some, you know, I don't know, intergalactic
Yeah.
cosmic entity.
Well, it's funny you bring that up because the cat is known for taking eyes out. So maybe that's what happened to the dog. Maybe they got in a little scuffle. Maybe we'll get an origin story about how that fight occurred at some point. Who knows? You know, who knows? It's open to
They come
anything at
from
this
the
point.
same universe as Alligator Loki.
Right, right. So Kate goes back into the party after kind of meeting the stray. She goes back into the party and she overhears Eleanor, her mother, talking to the rich prick Armand, the caricature of a rich man Armand, and he seems to be kind of threatening her. He says, "I've got powerful friends too, the kind you don't want to mess with." He starts saying kind of mafioso type language toward her, and Kate overhears it. She confronts her mom, and again, another red flag for me. Her mom is like super kind of like whatever about getting threatened by a really rich dude at a party about how he knows people that can. She was just kind of like, "What are you doing here?" And like, she's like, "Is he threatening?" She's like, "I don't even know." And then she just kind of like brushes it off. Her reactions to these things feel very very unnatural in comparison to all the other characters. Do you feel the same about her? I know you have your ears up about her as well. She seems a little off to you as well.
It's like she's playing a game of horse, but instead of the word horse, it's the word suspect, and it's just each thing
Yeah.
is just like, well, that gives you an S.
Right.
You got a U. You're getting close to spelling half the word here. I mean,
Yeah, and I wonder if it's like a red herring where it's like they're trying to kind of make us think that maybe she's something, and then they're gonna kind of pull the rug out from under us. It's possible, but it seems to me like the show is more so trying to pin the stepfather, that she's kind of having these she's Kate's way more suspicious obviously of the stepfather. It's just that I think we as the audience seem to be dialed in a little more, like, I think you should look like a little closer here, because she seems a little off as well. So Kate, in a bid to protect her mother, because she seems like she's not caring that a guy just threatened her, she follows Armand at the party. She follows him through like the kitchen and everything, and eventually they get down to looks like a black market dealing down in the cellar, the wine cellar, which is a staple in every one percenter's house apparently. They go to the downstairs wine cellar and they're doing an auction of black market goods, as you do. Sounds like a normal Tuesday. And Kate is kind of eavesdropping. She pretends that she's one of the serving people there, and they're bidding on weird stuff. I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. So for sure it was his blade, Ronan's blade, right? So for those of you who don't know, down in the wine cellar, they're bidding on black market items. One of which is Ronan, which is Clint Barton, his alter ego that he took over for the Avengers movies, where he was destroying organized crime and straight up just killing everyone in sight for during the blip. Right, that's when he got really dark. Obviously, he lost his family through that, and he went really dark and just started mowing down organized crime throughout the world as Ronin. And in this wine cellar, they're selling his sword, and then later it's revealed they're selling his suit. But the first item, I don't know if you got an eye on the first item, but it was selling for way more, and it was like $2.7 million, whereas the blade was like $500K. Was that the watch that they referenced later? Is that what they're talking about? Do you remember what it was?
I honestly feel bad because I was hoping that maybe you would have gotten it down. Because I got so wrapped up and focused on the parts that preceded that. Yeah, I kind of completely skipped over, which I'm sure is what they wanted it to be, a very subtle thing thrown in there. But yeah, I happened to miss. But I did obviously notice when they came in that they were like, "The watch, get the watch."
Exactly. Yeah. So that seems like I'm just making a logical jump, and guys, you can correct me in the comments if maybe I'm wrong, but I'm making a logical jump in saying that maybe the watch was what was going for $2.7 million, because that seems to be the prize thing that they were trying to steal when I guess the thing that we're gonna say happens here in a second. So he's bidding on the sword. He go up to like $500,000. He wins it, and then as they're bidding on Ronan's suit. So the next thing is his suit, his kind of ninja garb that he wore when he was Ronin through the Avengers scene. They start bidding on that, and then an explosion occurs. It seems like some guys jump in. Is that and I want to ask too, the guys that come in, is that the tracksuit mafia that come in?
I'm nearly certain that it is.
Right. It's okay. Yeah, that seems to be the case with me too.
Talk that specific way where it's like I actually got a kick out of them, because I'm sure some people could be like, all right, with the I don't know if that's the right place for the comedic approach there, but it made me laugh every time. As far as the one guy like took stuff way too seriously.
Yeah, and that's a point that I agree with in the show overall. I felt like 99% of the comedy landed for me. I thought a lot of it was really well done. It was really well, like it wasn't everywhere. It was they picked their spots really well for those funny moments, and I think like 99% of it landed for me, which I thought was really good. So the explosion occurs. There's an attack coming from the, I guess, Tracksuit Mafia. They're coming to steal the watch. They say, get the watch and nothing else and leave. Jack, the stepfather, sees Ronan's blade on the floor in the chaos and picks it up and puts it in his vest. So he takes Ronan's blade. He kind of steals it and gets out of there. And then Kate is kind of left to defend the people that are remaining. So she feels kind of obligated to defend them. She sees Ronan's suit that was up for auction sitting on the side. She goes ahead and puts the suit on. It fit surprisingly well. One of the notes I had for the scene, the action scene as well, is I love the kind of Christmassy influences in the score. So I thought the score had kind of this pace to it because it's an action scene, but I love that they used kind of some Christmas instrumentation with some bells and all that kind of stuff throughout. Kind of really added to the overall aesthetic. What did you think about that whole sequence where the explosion occurs, they take Ronan's suit, and she has that fight scene with the Tracksuit Mafia down in the wine cellar?
I thought it was just to show how grounded the show really remains. And it's only the first episode, so right, it's more so to see if it keeps on doing this throughout the entirety of the show. Mm-hmm. But it definitely felt realistic. You could tell that she was a skilled fighter that was worthy of trying to step up and do this and be a protector. And yet at the same time, it was never just like, okay, this is easy peasy, as simple as just like walking through the room. No, she had a struggle. There was some back and forth. And it was actually it was very entertaining because, when she did kind of get beat down, it made it that much more, fulfilling when she got back up and then started to kind of like come back with stuff. So I thought it was approached very well and effective. And it, again, as far as another tally in like the respect column for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's a great point. I think she seemed very balanced, but like you said, she wasn't overpowering these guys. And I think like we said earlier in the episode, it sets up this really great room for growth because even these kind of low-level Tracksuit Mafia thugs were getting hits in on her. They had her kind of on the ropes for a bit. She's a 22-year-old kid. I think they detail later in the episode. She's a 22-year-old kid that's just kind of black belted in martial arts and archery and stuff like that. But she hasn't been in these situations before, and I think they portray that really well. She doesn't seem like she has it all figured out. She reminds me a little of Daniel Craig's James Bond, where she's more of a brawler. She takes hits a lot, and she's more of kind of a fighter. And I think it makes her more relatable than if she was just to do 3 backflips, kick a bunch of dudes, steal all their guns. You know what I mean? Like, that's the kind of stuff where I kind of tune out in some of those Marvel scenes where it's just kind of someone just going crazy and there's not a lot of struggle to it. So I think it's a great point. I think they did do a good job of kind of showing her room for growth that's just going to happen later in the season. My one criticism of the scene, I did think the action was a little incoherent in this section. I thought maybe the cinematography was a little dark. And the way that the editing occurred, there were some parts that I had trouble following. So if I had a critique, it would be that, especially coming off of the oneer of the first scene where it's just a one shot and you just see all this stuff. This one seemed a lot less choreographed and a lot less thought went into kind of capturing that scene. It also could have been a little more visually dynamic. The wine cellar in the dark, it was very kind of dark, kind of cave, very visually not dynamic. So I was a little hit or miss with that action sequence, but I did like what it revealed about her character, I guess, which is probably the most important thing out of that. So it goes from that to we're outside. The mother's trying to get in touch with Kate and can't on her cell phone here. And now we're getting rumblings from people that were at the event saying Ronan's back. I saw Ronan in his suit. There's been sightings of him now because Kate was wearing the suit there. So we're setting up kind of the conflict, the main conflict of the show, it seems. And she leaves. She finds Lucky. The Tracksuit Mafia is loading stuff into a car, and Lucky the dog, the heroic, mighty dog that Lucky is, grabs the would-be stealer, would-be thief, and pulls him by the leg. And then the guy starts kicking the dog, which is already going against my Santa wish list here early on. Early on, I'm already getting my Santa wish list denied here. The dog is getting kicked by the guy. Kate sees it. She very nobly goes and knocks the guy out. And the dog runs away, and she chases the dog. She chases the dog, I'm assuming, to see if it's okay. I don't know because I have a theory that I think you'd probably agree with, which I think I think Lucky swallowed the watch, right?
It seems like, because it doesn't really seem like he like picked it up and then dropped it later or
Right.
anything, especially because she stays with him for a bit afterwards. So yeah, I think that that's pretty safe that he just kind of like chomped it down.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, which all the more is kind of like, well, maybe it's just that intergalactic being that's just like, I'm gonna keep this in my stomach pocket,
Right, right. He
until
knows, like
we
he
put it out.
knows, it's
But it
possible.
is a good point that it's even if that's what happened, I don't really know how she would know that. So it does kind of seem a little funny. I'm okay with it, but it does
Yeah.
seem kind of humorous that it's like, why are you just randomly following this dog?
Yeah, like the dog gets away and she chases. The only thing I can think of, and the way I kind of write it off in my head, is that she was concerned for the dog because it was getting kicked, and she thought, "Oh, maybe it's hurt, and I'll follow it to see if it's okay." Which, if
Which
that's
is
cool,
fair.
like awesome, way to go, Kate. But yeah, it seemed a little weird. She leaves this like explosive, like terrorist attack, and then this dog gets away, and she just chases the dog. And I remember thinking, like, that seems like a weird priority, but I kind of wrote it off as that there. So yeah, Lucky. I think, and I'll get into some predictions too, but I'm pretty sure he ate the watch. That seems to be what I would put my money on at this point here. So Clint's back at the hotel with his family. He sees on the news, it looks like Ronan has returned. And he's like, well, that's weird because I'm Ronan, so that's kind of odd. So he sees the suit on there, and we kind of cut away from him after he gets that news. We go back to Kate Bishop in the Ronin suit. She goes to her apartment, which seemed like a dorm to me. Did you get that vibe too? It seemed like there's like a file thing at the front of the door where it looks like there's like dorm announcements on it. But she
Yeah.
calls it an apartment. It's just I was just remember thinking like that's a really weird dorm room. Definitely a cool apartment. I love those kind of loft style apartments. I remember thinking, oh, this is kind of a badass looking apartment. I kind of dig it. Uh, she's there with the suit on. She's brought Lucky with her, so she does have the dog. She's brought the pizza dog there. It's gonna get his name actually here shortly because that's how she feeds it. She just gives it a old slice of pizza to feed the dog there. Did you have anything about her setup? What did you think about her apartment and her setup in this scene with her and Lucky in the apartment there?
It was cool to see that she brought Lucky back. I guess
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
the part that was like my main focus. I was just so happy that it was like, all right, cool. This is now an established thing. And then it's a mixed emotions type thing. I'm excited to see how he's going to be integrated. But then, like how you've been saying, it's
Yeah.
that consistent worrying of don't let anything happen to this dog.
He just needs tummy rubs and that's it. Nothing should scare him or cause him any discomfort whatsoever. He's already been kicked, so Marvel, chill out. Just let him
Multiple times.
multiple times. Just let him do his thing. He's fine. Her setup I thought was really cool. It has aside from just the loft apartment vibe that I dug there. She's got the diner chairs. She's also got the arrows right by the front of the door. She's got her like target practice thing. It has a very Batcave kind of sensibility to it. It seems more like a training place than like a living space for her, which I thought was pretty fun. Yeah, she's got the suit on. She's getting out of there and going, I think, to Armand's place, right? Yeah, she goes in to confront the Armand guy, Armand the third, the douchey rich guy, and he's dead. Looks like he's been stabbed to death. That's a key point. Stabbed to death in his family room or something, like his study, whatever room rich people have, and then his maid or whoever works for him comes in to give him food and sees that he's been murdered. So that's kind of the big twist here towards the end of the episode is this Armand guy is dead, and she
Well,
goes
did you
to.
think that when
Mhm.
she like found him, just as far as that was the only question that I had for that scene, did
Yeah.
you think that at first they were setting it up as though like I thought based on the way they showed the woman coming in from the back, like in the back of the scene, and
Mhm.
then Haley starts to leave. I was like, oh, great. They're going to pin this murder on Ronan.
Yeah.
Like at least it very
Well,
much. And she
I
got away.
my thought process at that point was I'm pretty sure anybody that has which we'll talk about here in a second that has monogrammed butterscotch, total douchebag. Monogrammed butterscotch. I'm pretty sure anybody that has monogrammed butterscotch also has security cameras in their house, I would assume. So that would be I feel like that would be a safe assumption. That's what I was thinking as I was like, oh, they're going to see her on the security cams coming in and like in like finding the body or something like that, or somebody's going to tamper with the footage and it's going to look like she's standing there after he's been killed, and then you know what I mean. So that's what I thought was going to happen. But yeah, he's got Monogram Butterscotch, which she makes a cool point to point out there. I just remember thinking, yeah, he looks like a dude that would monogram his Butterscotch. She leaves there and she's confronted by the Tracksuit Mafia. They kind of see her roaming the streets and they chase her down, thinking that she's Ronin, who has done some pretty terrible things to organized crime. So they are looking to hit back here. They chase her through an alley. There's a quick kind of fight scene. Again, my only gripe with the episode here was that I felt like I said before, the fight scenes seemed dark and they seemed a little incoherent for me. They weren't terrible. I just remember that being the one thing that kind of stood out to me there. What did you think about this scene? Because it shows her getting attacked by the Tracksuit Mafia, and then there's a shadowy figure that comes to her rescue towards the end there. What did you think of this whole scene here when Clint comes in?
This whole episode has been doing like a nice like evolutionary process, and I'm hoping that the show overall is going to continue to do that, where it's just showing that she eventually will become worthy of the Hawkeye mantle, and that this is kind of a nice introductory state of once again able to hold her own, not completely being manhandled and tossed around or whatever, but also like it's, hey, I need someone to come and kind of help me out right now, otherwise I'd be up the creek without a paddle type of situation. So it was just, I do agree as far as with this one too. I think of course it's at night, so it has to be dark and stuff, but nonetheless I definitely see what you mean as far as right trying to make stuff out visually, right? Even if it makes sense for the show, make us be able to see what's going on. But it was a very nice way to bring the two together, and it also made sense. I guess that's what my biggest thing was, is that it was logical. Not like everything needs to be the most sensible thing. I'm willing to go ahead and suspend my disbelief, as far as for a lot of these shows. But that it made sense as to why he would have tracked her down to be in that situation at that time, as opposed to like, what the heck? So they just happen to be in the same place at the same time.
Yeah, it's a great point. I think like nothing in this episode felt too coincidental. Like it all felt like, okay, this all kind of makes sense in the world, the way that they set the story up. It makes sense that he would want to find her. It makes sense that she would have the Ronin costume, considering she was down there when the explosion happened and the chaos. She would have picked it up to try to stop these guys from killing these people. So all of the choices seem like they're coming from a place of logic, and that kind of comes through in the show. I did like the way they kind of introduced Clint or as Hawkeye in this scene, where it shows from her point of view in the car, and then it just kind of shows all that stuff, very Batman-y kind of introduction. And he takes out all of the thugs, takes her out. I did the one other point that I had about the scene is I really liked that they didn't act like it wasn't Clint. Like we all knew it was Clint. I think everyone knew Clint was going to show up to save her in that moment. And I like that they didn't make it some kind of like really epic slow reveal of that it's him that saved her. I like that like he's just carrying her to the alley and it just kind of shows his face as he takes his like helmet off, his hood off or whatever. I liked how like they were like, we get it guys, it's Clint. Let's get to the good stuff here. So he takes her to the alley. He takes off her mask and sees she's a little girl, and he's kind of taken aback by that, obviously, and that's where the episode ends. So after episode 1, did you have any specific like predictions that you think of where this show is going to go based on what we saw there?
If anything, probably one of the things that I'm most intrigued by is that I can't really tell as far as what this is trying to culminate into. And I feel like actually to compare it backwards, that's like what I really came to appreciate about WandaVision is when I was watching it, there's a lot of people that were like, I don't want to keep watching it because I'm just confused. I don't even understand what's trying to go on here or what they're trying to portray. But that's what's kind of interesting, though, is you don't have to understand every single thing right from the get-go. So if anything, it makes it where it's hard for me to come up with exact predictions of where it would go.
Right.
But, like I said, it raises the interest level a lot, though.
It is very kind of like open-ended. It doesn't seem like they're going in a very particular direction at this point. It does set up the main conflict, which is these guys, very bad people, now think Kate Bishop is Ronin, and that's a big problem. And I think that's kind of the main conflict in the show that they're setting up here. Again, I think, and I talked about some of my predictions earlier. I think Lucky ate the watch. I think the watch is in Lucky's gut. I think we're going to find that out pretty shortly. I don't know if it's going to be in episode 2 or after. Also, the 6 days thing. So I think, like I said, I think the format's going to be every day he's kind of seeing his family do things that he wishes that he was doing with them. And I think it's going to be him trying to get home before Christmas happens. So it's going to be this ticking time clock of like, Clint needs to get all this resolved so that he can make it home in time with his family for Christmas. And like I said, I love the low stakes, focused stakes of that. I feel like I feel like watching the show, it's gonna feel like that's what we want more than anything. Just let Clint get home for the holidays, you know. I think that's gonna be kind of what we're fighting for there. But yeah, not too much prediction wise there. Again, we think that there is definitely something off with the mom, so we'll see how that goes in episode 2. I think the watch with Lucky is going to rear its head. I don't think it's going to happen in the next episode, but like I said, I do think that little Armand kid is going to either come up sometime later in this season as a character, or they're setting him up as something that's going to come in another show or something along those lines there. But that's going to do it here for episode 1. We are going to be doing episode 2. Like I said, if you guys enjoyed this and you want to see us go through each episode as they air throughout the season, make sure to subscribe and like the video here. You can also follow us on audio podcasts if maybe you want to listen in a more passive sense. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, pretty much any major podcasting platform. You can search DisCuss Hawkeye. I have some reviews that recently posted for Tick Tick Boom and Belfast that are up on the site. If you guys want to check that out, that's going to be linked in the description below as well. Did you have anything that you're working on or that you wanted to promo before we head out here?
Oh, well, at least definitely go ahead and check out the variety of skits. I've been very proud as far as those coming out lately and everything. Mm-hmm. And there are definitely some Marvel related reviews that are coming up. I've done so much that has been focused on the Disney Plus series, and I definitely have something to focus a little bit more towards the Phase 4 movies that have been coming out. So expect something Eternals and Shang-Chi related sooner than later.
Awesome. That's going to do it for us here, guys. If you guys are watching this on November 21st, happy Thanksgiving for all of you guys that are watching this here. I hope you have a great time with your family, and we're really looking forward to hanging out with you guys throughout the seasons here. So season's greetings, everybody. And as always, until next time, discuss amongst yourselves. We will see you guys later.